Hey all, and welcome to Shadow Space. And today we are commenting on another BCB video. This is called Leaked Call Exposes Desperate Democrats Plotting to Overthrow Supreme Court to Rig Midterms. This is uploaded May 10th. This is being recorded on May 11th, and link is in the description.
Right now, the fight to sway control of Congress takes dramatic new turns just weeks after Democrats declared victory in Virginia.
The law is with us in Virginia. The facts are with us in Virginia. And the people are with us in Virginia. There's no basis in law or fact for the Virginia Supreme Court under the Constitution that exists, particularly in the aftermath of a people-approved referendum, to do anything other than to allow it to move forward.
The law is with us, said the aspiring House Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries.
And he is the catalyst for all of this. Had he kept his dumb mouth shut and not said anything, none of this would be happening. This is all his fault. You want to point the finger at someone? Because this has been happening the whole time. It was Democrats taking a victory lap around the map in Virginia, and then this idiot getting on there and saying it's maximum warfare everywhere all the time. Like, none of this would be happening.
Not so fast, says the Virginia Supreme Court. Today, they struck down the map that voters...
Yeah, it's easy when you're in your echo chamber and you don't have any opposition or pushback to your ideas. It's different when you're in the room with someone else who doesn't share your opinion. You don't just get the validation.
Approved last month.
And they aren't just going to sit there and not do anything. They're not just going to sit there and take it.
That would have eliminated 4 seats currently held by Republicans. In a new interview with CNN, Jeffries is vowing to flip at least 2 of those seats, saying, quote, "The fight's not over in Virginia. We're just getting started."
Boy, 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 boy. So we gotta talk.
Maybe you should figure out how to redistrict in Virginia before you say that.
About a leak.
See, again, why would you draw a new map? Why not use that same map, but just do the process right?
Phone call
I don't get
revealing
it.
the current desperation and panic
I
within
don't
the
get it.
Democrat Party over having their party ruined by the Supreme Court at the federal level and at the state level in Virginia. Okay, as we all know, their gerrymandered Virginia maps got overturned by the Virginia Supreme Court, and now they are desperate to save themselves because their gerrymandering stunt has officially backfired due to the fact that Republicans have way more firepower to redistrict their states than Democrats have right now. Okay, in fact, they're out of ammunition. And the reason why you know they're out of ammunition is because they're coming up with extremely desperate plans in order to save themselves going into the midterms, because apparently it's not a shoe-in that there's going to be a blue wave. Okay, you have Hakeem Jeffries going to the mainstream liberal media and fuming, suggesting that they're going to continue to fight, even though there's not really anything they can really do. But he is claiming that they're going to enact all types of reforms in order to remedy the situation that they're currently in.
The polling indicates the likelihood that Democrats will take the House in November. History suggests the likelihood that that'll happen. Are you a little worried that this nutty, out of control gerrymandering actually compromises that possibility?
No.
No, we're going to win back the House of Representatives in November. We are only 3 seats short. We historically overperformed in November, and that's one of the reasons why Republicans are in panic mode. Remember, Ali, when we took the House back in 2018, we were 24 seats short. We crossed over that hurdle, and in fact, in 2018, we flipped a total of 40 seats. So we're going to take back control of the House of Representatives. We're going to continue to make clear to the American people that we will lower their high cost of living, fix a broken healthcare system, and clean up the corruption that we're...
Like you didn't do in the Biden administration.
seeing
Got it.
in the country, in the Congress, certainly with the Supreme Court, and deal with the most corrupt administration in American history. Now, we're going to need nationwide judicial reform. We're going to need nationwide electoral reform. We're going to need nationwide campaign finance reform, which is why we have to take the House back, take the Senate back, keep pressing forward, and then in 2028, take the presidency back as well.
That said nothing. He sat there. This tool sat there and nodded along as he said nothing.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Hakeem Jeffries is suggesting that Republicans are in panic mode, but yet behind
This
closed
is why
doors,
you lose.
apparently, according to a leaked call, Democrats are the ones that are actually panicking.
We're going to keep going. We're going to take back power. We're going to stick it to the Republicans. And then we're finally going to reach nirvana. That is what he said. That was the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard.
Mode, because they are literally plotting the possibility of overthrowing the Virginia Supreme Court in order to reinstate their gerrymandered map. Yes, you heard that correctly. Democrats are currently plotting, or put it this way, they're discussing a plot to overthrow the Virginia Supreme Court in order to reinstate their gerrymandered maps.
Of course they are.
That is how democratic the Democrat Party is. So let's talk about it, because stories like this we should pay attention to, because ultimately it shows you what Democrats are willing to do for power right now, right? The type of...
Well, it's segregation. They would willingly take the whole state of Virginia and say, nope, we don't belong to the Union anymore. We don't recognize the authority of our Supreme Court, and we're just going to make our own independent state.
Individuals that we're dealing with. So let's read here. Democrats are struggling to respond to a major redistricting setback in Virginia, with some party leaders discussing an audacious and possibly far-fetched idea for trying to restore a congressional map avoided by the court, but showing little indication that they have a clear plan. During a private discussion on Saturday that included Democratic House members from Virginia and Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York,
they don't have a clear plan.
Minority leader, the lawmakers vented anger at their defeat at the Virginia Supreme Court, spoke about a collective determination to flip 2 or 3 Republican-held seats under the existing map, and discussed a bank shot proposal to redraw the congressional lines anyways, according to 3 people who participated in the call. And
they don't even know what they did wrong, that it got rejected to fix it. I don't know what they think they're going to do.
2 others who were briefed on it. They did not land on a specific course. Ford and Mr. Jeffries and the other members of Congress agreed to consult with their lawmakers about the most prudent way to proceed, said the people, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe a private...
Why are people... I don't know what state Hakeem Jeffries is from. Is he from Virginia? Does it say? No. Private discussion on Saturday that included Democratic House members from Virginia and Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Why is a representative from New York telling Virginia what to do?
Talk.
What does Hakeem Jeffries know about Virginia politics?
So, what exactly are Democrats planning? Well, apparently, what they want to do is that they want to lower the retirement age of the Supreme Court for Virginia in order to force the whole court to resign, right? To retire. Okay, let's read this. This plan right here is so insane. But the fact that Democrats even discussing it is an indication that they are desperate. They are in full-blown panic mode right now. The fact that this is even...
Well, I mean, this is part of the problem, is that laws can change. The problem is that they're literally only doing this to try to stop this Supreme Court decision. They are literally trying to manipulate the rules to try to get the outcome that they want.
Being discussed at all, okay, should worry the country about how power hungry the Democrat Party has become. The first step in the process,
They think it's a war. Of course they are.
as discussed on the delegation's call, would be to invoke
The losers in war usually don't fare particularly well.
January ruling by a circuit court judge in Tazewell County, VA, that said the 2026 constitutional amendment effort to redraw the maps was invalid because county officials did not post notice of it at courthouses and other public locations 3 months before a general election. Democrats would aim to use that ruling to seek to invalidate the earlier constitutional amendment that created the
So why not just do it again? Make sure that you do this. Like, you don't even have to change the maps.
state's independent redistricting commission by arguing that courthouses
This is such a roundabout way of doing this. And there's no guarantee that it's even going to work. It's entirely possible that the judges get kicked out, but then the judges that you put in there are just as right and conservative leaning.
the state did not post notice of it at the time.
This is a really dumb idea.
That
It's a risky idea, I guess. I won't say it's
the
dumb.
legislature the authority to enact a map of its choosing. Ensuring the plan proceeds would involve the General Assembly, which is controlled by Democrats, lowering the mandatory retirement age for Virginia's Supreme Court from 75 to 54, the age of the youngest current justice or less. Virginia judges are appointed by the General Assembly, where Democrats hold majorities in both chambers and could fill vacancies on the court with sympathetic Democratic lawyers. Yeah, so again, the fact that such an extreme measure is being discussed amongst Democrats in private calls.
But this is what I said last video, is that they would just write the rules to consolidate their power, and then the moment they had the power consolidated, they would just change the rules again so that they could never get out of power. This is what they would do. They would just break it.
Anything to save themselves in the midterms. Now, the reason for this is because if Democrats lose the midterms in 2026, it's over for them, right? It is over. The Democrat Party's on life support right now. The only thing that's keeping Democrats alive right now is Trump derangement. If Democrats cannot survive the midterms, if they cannot win during the midterms, I have a hard time believing that they'd be able to win in 2028, right? I just think that it is do or die for Democrats, and plans like this reveal the desperation that Democrats currently have. They want to overthrow the Virginia Supreme Court. It's crazy. Which, by the way, these are the same people who kept telling us that we got to respect the courts and respect their rulings. Okay? Anytime the courts ruled against Trump, Democrats screamed that we have to have an independent judiciary, right? This is what individuals like Hakeem Jeffries and others have told us, right? They told us that the judiciary being independent is a hallmark of our democracy. What happened to all that? What happened to all that? Now all of a sudden they believe that they should overthrow.
Well, how do you be independent? Ultimately, you bring your perspective into your interpretation of the law. How do you separate your personal bias from the law, from the interpretation of the law?
The judiciary, when they don't agree with Democrats, right? When the judiciary does not agree with Democrats, now they want to overthrow it.
I wonder what you make of some of the
Well,
messaging we've.
they say this about everything. When it functions for Democrats, like Minnesota, where they replace the flag, it's completely acceptable for them to cut off funding from counties that don't fly the revised Minnesota flag. That's completely acceptable. But Trump cutting DEI, Trump firing people, Trump funding with Trump withholding funds from but Trump withholding funds from universities for women-held degrees, for worthless degrees, is inappropriate. Why is it unacceptable for one state to withhold funding from Republican places, but Donald Trump cannot withhold funding from Democrat institutions? Why is there a difference? Either you both get to do it, in which case you don't get to sit there and complain when the other person does it to you, or neither of you should be able to do it, in which case you shouldn't be engaging in it, and you should be actively trying to get it removed. Neither of these things are happening.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries had very strong words for the Supreme Court, calling it, quote, illegitimate, and accusing the court of trying to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond. Do you agree that the Supreme Court is illegitimate and actually trying to rig U.S. elections, or do you think that language goes too far?
I think the Supreme Court is wrong. I think they've been making decisions to strip rights from Americans, whether it's stripping rights for reproductive rights from Americans, whether it's stripping voting rights for Americans. This court is setting us back. And we have to understand that this is one of those moments where what the Supreme Court is doing is making a decision, but the people have the last word. This is not the end of this story. We have seen setbacks before. The question is this the time for people to understand that this is not left or right, it is right or wrong? Is it going to spark another movement? And so most important right now.
Yeah, when you say that it's right and wrong, yeah, it's going to spark another movement.
Now is people to understand we are not helpless. 6 people cannot determine 300 plus million. We have to fight.
Well, you take me to my next question, because this decision has revived the debate within the Democratic Party about potentially adding more seats to the Supreme Court.
In another dark warning, Cory Booker doesn't hesitate to admit he wants to pack the Supreme Court and reform it because he disagrees with their recent rulings. My question is, who is more corrupt, the Supreme Court or Congress?
Would you, Senator, support an effort to add more seats to the Supreme Court, to expand the court?
Well, remember, there's a corrupt shadow hanging over the Supreme Court. Some of these same members that are voting on decisions like this are accepting gifts from billionaires. We have RVs, lavish vacations. It's a corrupt court. The highest court in our land has the lowest ethics laws. Number 2 is that the Supreme Court clearly within our power. I lead one of these pieces of legislation with Senator Whitehouse and others to give term limits to Supreme Court members. That could go a long way in curing this. The Supreme Court desperately needs reform. It is a corrupt court, and in my opinion, it is a court that needs reform, and I will continue to lead on those things.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Do you think he would be saying that if the court was full of Democrats and liberals? If the whole court...
No, because they would be ruling in favor of things that he wanted.
...was full of Ketanji Brown Jacksons, would he be saying that? Would he be calling for term limits? Which, by the way, term limits for the Supreme Court, but not term limits for senators like himself, right? If anything, before we think about putting term limits on the Supreme Court, we should put term limits on Congress first, okay? But notice how this is...
See, if a court, if the function of a court is to just interpret the laws, and they are truly neutral, if they are truly independent, then you shouldn't ever have to replace a justice. Their political affiliation doesn't ever come into it, because their only purpose is to interpret the law and make sure that the law is being followed. Representatives changing makes sense because demographics change, generations get older, representation as demographics shift, they need different representation. They have different needs.
Now becoming an open conversation. Cory Booker, who is not a low-level Democrat, right, in the Senate, by the way. I mean, he's been around for a while. Is openly musing about packing the Supreme Court, overthrowing the Supreme Court, because he doesn't like that they disagree with the Democrats, right? He doesn't like their decisions. But these are the same people out of the other side of their mouth anytime the lower courts, judicial activists, Democrat activists on the courts rule against Trump.
Or rule in favor of Democrats, they say that you have to respect their ruling.
The whole time.
And you're a bad person if you say that it's corrupt.
Persecutions from the Biden administration and Democrats. The whole time they kept telling us, no, you got to respect the courts and their decisions. You got to respect the judges' decisions, right? Anybody not respecting the court's decisions is engaging in an insurrection, right? You're a threat to our democracy. But once again, Democrats are showing this country what they actually mean when they say our democracy. They just mean Democrat power and control, because there is no ideological or logical consistency to the stances that Democrats are taking outside of whatever is best for them maintaining power. The same people that told us that we must respect an independent judiciary not only wants to overthrow the judiciary because the judiciary disagrees with them, but they want to pack the judiciary with people who all agree with them.
In a system that they say is supposed to be independent. So them thinking like them shouldn't have any bearing at all. And if, like, again, like these Virginia maps, it wasn't even a question of the maps or how they were drawn. It was a question of process. If they didn't follow the process, then who's on the court shouldn't matter. They didn't follow the rules. Ergo, it should be challenged. It should be thrown out. It shouldn't matter.
So not only
this is just what Democrats do when they lose. They say, "Well, the game is the game is just broken. It's just rigged against me." So obviously, the only way that I would ever win is to get in there and completely overhaul it so that it only works for me, or so that it works for me more than everyone else, or at the very least, along with everyone else.
Do they not respect the judicial branch as an institution? They also don't believe it should be independent. When they claim they want it to be independent, what they actually mean is that they want the illusion of independence. But
they want it to be Democrats.
Practically speaking, the court to be liberal, okay, pro-Democrat. That's what they actually mean.
Which,
that's the same
at that
thing
point, your court is not following the law. Your court is using its personal feelings to dictate what it thinks the law should be. Which is not what a court should be doing.
Independent redistricting commission, right? When they claim that we want a ban on partisan gerrymandering. We principally don't believe in this. We want an independent commission, right? But in all of their states with a quote unquote independent redistricting commission, they're all gerrymandered heavily in favor of Democrats, right? It's funny how that works. Every blue state with an independent commission just so happens to have gerrymandered maps in favor of Democrats. But then they'll turn around and tell you, wink, wink, is independent, right? Independent.
Well, and then they'll sit there and they'll get mad when in Republican states, they gerrymander their districts in basically the same way. Like, why? You do it. Why is it bad that they do it? You're allowed
Democrats
to.
want the illusion of independence, but they want the actual results that are going to align with whatever they want, right?
See, it's what I talked about, I believe, last video, with the moral grandstanding. They know what the humanitarian position is. They know what the ideal is, and they know that they don't meet that ideal. They know that they will never meet that ideal. But they try to hang that over your head like it's some sort of failing, even though they, in the attempt to be this thing, are also failures.
That's what all of this is
Which
about.
is why it's
They have no,
hypocrisy,
there's
which is
no
why they're
principle
all
here.
hypocrites.
They don't respect the judicial branch. When the judicial branch does not agree with the Democrats, they're the first people talking about let's overthrow it, right? Let's get rid of it. These are the same people that'll rig their primaries in favor of the candidate of their choice, right? Whoever they want, whoever they think should be nominated, they will rig it in their favor. They'll overthrow Joe Biden. They overthrew the president who was running. Said, nah, you can't run. They overthrew democracy within their own party. They didn't even get their voters an opportunity to vote, right? They didn't give an opportunity to choose who they wanted. They said, this is who we have for you. That's democracy. We need to overthrow our democracy in order to protect democracy. Lo and behold, they're using the same logic here. We need to overthrow the judicial branch in order to protect it, to keep it independent, right?
No?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So,
But then talk about packing it with Democrat judges, which is not keeping it independent.
listen to them. Believe them.
Yeah.
This is what they're willing to do now.
I don't know why you wouldn't just listen to all the things that they say. Like, this person believes that this is what's best, is to do this. I don't have any reason not to believe them.
They're willing to go this far to try to beat Trump, even though apparently they're allegedly.
It's maximum warfare everywhere all the time. That means that there is nothing illegal. That means that there is no action that's inappropriate that they won't take to try to get their goals, to get to where they want to go.
They're favored to win, right? They're supposed to be this huge blue wave, which it could happen. I don't know, right? But if they were feeling so confident, why go through all of this? You don't need to gerrymander Virginia if you got the juice like that. If you got the juice,
if you truly represent a majority opinion in the country, then it shouldn't matter.
Juice like that, what's the point of gerrymandering Virginia? You shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to consider overthrowing the courts.
Well,
if you think,
again, what is the point? Is the point to overrepresent minorities to make sure that they have a voice, or is it to properly represent the political landscape of the country?
think that you're gonna win.
What is the point? What is the point of?
What's the point?
What is this point of state-based, population-based representation?
Because honestly, I mean, the more that they do, the more that it backfires, right? It just hurts them. But the reason why they're doing it is because they don't feel that confident. The Democrats are not well liked.
Well, because it's projection. For as much as they sit there and they say Democrats have to rig the game in their favor in order to win, they have to use those same tools that the Republicans use to rig the system to win, so that they can rig the system and win. In fact, by putting in something like the Civil Rights Act, they have put extra provisions in so that they can win more.
That's their Achilles heel. People don't like the Democrat Party, right? And if Trump derangement is not enough, then they're going to have a very, very, very hard time. They know this. So we have to understand what's at stake. They're telling us, if Democrats take back power control, they're going to do whatever it takes in order to justify never giving it up.
They're at war. They are afraid that they are going to lose the country to people who don't represent their ideas, to people who don't like them, to people who they are afraid are going to be forced to change to assimilate to the majority, which is something that they don't want to do.
Ever again. And they're going to say,
they appreciate trans people and gay rights and free healthcare for everyone far too much to give them up.
Hey, we
and Palestine,
are doing
of course.
X, Y, and Z because Trump, right? We don't want another Trump.
Yeah.
So this is why it's
I mean,
justified to
Republicans are Nazis. So obviously you wouldn't give any power to the Nazis. So of course they have to consolidate all the power amongst themselves. Like again, why wouldn't you believe that this is the tactic?
overthrow democracy.
I said this when they were talking about firing Scott Jennings. Why would you invite a Nazi on to spread their Nazi propaganda on your liberal democratic network? That doesn't make any sense. So why do you think these people would want representation or would want any amount of power and control? That doesn't make sense.
Make sure that we can never lose again. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. So this is why it's important to vote, to get out there, to stand up to Democrats, because if they're allowed to win, it may be the last election that we ever have. And that's not an exaggeration. Just listen to them. They're telling you exactly what they want to do. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
I mean, this is where we are, where both parties hate each other so completely that they would change the rules just to hurt each other. They would game the system just to cause harm to the other party. This is what maximum warfare everywhere all the time looks like. Is you don't get a break, you don't get a timeout, it is relentless assault after assault. It doesn't stop. That's the point. It doesn't stop until it's resolved. And that resolution usually involves one person being announced the winner. We have existed as a society where for far too long there has been no dominant social structure. The Democrats claim that they are the dominant social structure, and the Republicans say that they are. You cannot exist in a state where the people are expected to follow two completely competing set of ideals. It's not going to work. Unless you segregate and you separate your community from the other communities so that you don't interact. But then you don't really have something like multiculturalism. Multiculturalism allows to some degree different social groups to come together and interact. No, because it would have to be. Because that's multiculturalism. You don't have to agree with each other's cultures, but you still have to be engaged in commerce. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to establish territorial boundaries. Like,